Say, Lord, here I am, standing at the door. My heart is I come before your throne, God.
Lord, here I come, bringing sacrifice. My heart is full of who you are to me.
Say, Mom, yeah. My God, oh yeah, say, Mom, cause my God, faithful God and King, here at your feet I bow to you. Oh, because of sin and shame, you bore it all for me, for all you have done. Our grateful heart tell it all. You say, you're so sweet, God. I've tasted you, oh God. I've tasted you, oh God. Yeah. When my God is good, say I have tasted. Oh God,
now I testify
that you are
my God.
Oh, whom shall I fear?
Whom shall I fear?
Nobody, God.
This stormy season, my God is
God is good. God is good. Let's say God is good. Say, God is good.
yes, yes. God is good. He's so, so good. I hope you can all hear me. Can you all hear me? Great, great. Welcome, Dr. Sam. Welcome, Wendy. It's another day. Great, 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 great. How are you doing, guys? How are you?
I'll let Wendy go.
I think she's muted. She's muted. Oh, yes,
Oh,
yes.
no, I'm not.
Yeah, no, no.
I
Yeah,
think I'm
yeah.
good. Can you hear me? Great.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
I could hardly sleep last night after Dr. Samuel brought his message. So I think I'm still on a high as I see this event of legacy, life-changing event, this defining moment of Legacy 2021 changed lives. So I'm excited to be here today. Very little sleep, but absolutely fully present.
Praise God.
Amazing.
Praise
Yeah.
God. Same, Wendy, to the glory of God. God showed up for us yesterday with the 2 sessions, and I couldn't sleep that much as well. And we're here again. But I'm excited about what's going to happen today. I'm excited about these sessions that we have today. Wendy's be speaking today, and Nick Wizik will be speaking today. Dale MacArthur will be speaking today. I mean, God has so much in store for us today, and what
Yes.
a way to get started today.
Yeah, it's gonna be special. Today is, we only have 2 days. We've kept it short and simple. And I'm just really excited about what will happen and the transformation that will take place today. So,
Yes,
guys,
yes.
welcome, welcome, welcome to this session. All right, it's going to be an unusual session. We've got two speakers that will be speaking concurrently. They'll be together. It's going to be
Loaded.
amazing. Yes. So please, we allow you to share the link with all your friends.
Yes.
Remind the people, get everybody here right now. We're about to kick off. All right. So get on your devices and just share the link. Share the link right now.
With
Send.
everyone you love and care about. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. You need to hear Wendy's story. You need to hear Dale speak. All right. They've got a powerful message for you, a life transforming message for all of us. And so
Yeah.
you cannot afford to miss this. You
And
can't
shout out to
afford-
those on Mixlar as well.
Yes.
Welcome,
Yes.
welcome, welcome.
God bless you. We heard about you yesterday, and we are so grateful that great things are happening at yours and with you. And please stick with us by the grace of God. We look forward to you being blessed today in Jesus' name.
Yes, yes,
Amen,
amen,
amen.
amen, amen. So, guys, share the link as we said. You've got the YouTube link. Just share it, send the word, spread the word around, and let everyone join as many people as you know, because this is a time of change. It's a time of transformation.
Amen.
This is
Amen.
day 2, session 1, legacy. Yeah, so you can share the link with your family, friends, and all your social media platforms. And for some of you that have been asking, how do we get the recordings and all that? There's a link for that as well. Hopefully, it'll be displayed on the screen very soon. So kindly, all you need to do is to go onto the link and register. I think I tried to show us that yesterday. So just go on the link, register bit.ly/order legacy 2021. So that will be coming up shortly. So just go onto the link, register for whatever you want. So that's it there, bit.ly slash order legacy 2021. You can order whatever your session you need. And if you want the entire conference recordings, you can get them. We're going to be sending the links out immediately the conference is over. So whoa, what a package we have today. We're going to start with a spoken word by one of my favorite people. She's in the backstage right now, warming up.
Woo!
Go, itching to go. Don't bring her up yet. I'm not bringing her up yet. All right. I want to bring somebody special first. Okay. I want to bring somebody special first. So if you've been following me for a while, you would have met this wonderful, amazing lady. She's in green today.
Oh,
All right.
praise God.
And today is her birthday. So I said, okay,
Woo!
Oh,
we should celebrate Tofumi today, shouldn't we?
yes.
Let's bring her up. Happy birthday, Tofumi.
Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Tiffany. Good morning. Happy birthday.
Good morning. Wow. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to have my birthday on the same day as the conference. Thank you so much.
Well, we wish you all the very best, okay? And it's good to celebrate your birthday, a legacy. All right, to spend your time here. God bless you.
Amen.
All righty. Good. So now let's bring up Shania. Are you ready? So Shania is one of my people, my mentees. She's a wonderful lady and she's got a word. She's got a word. So we're going to bring her on right now. So Shania will give us a spoken word, and then after that we'll go into the session, the first session. As we said, share the link right now, okay? And get everyone here. So we're bringing up Shania now. Wow, Shania, welcome.
Hi. Thank you all so much for this. All right, I'm going to start.
All right, we'll let you in.
Legacy. A 6-letter word with multiple meanings. Just the word alone can make your heart start beating. A birthright, a heritage, what you choose to leave behind. Hear me now, I'm about to speak out. Legacy, what's it all about? A word that rhymes with proclaim? That's right, it's all in your name. Legacy. McDonald's, a last name. Ford, a last name. Gucci, a last name. Versace, a last name. Armani, a last name. All of these are last names who were and are unashamed. You've got a legacy, power in your name. It's time to sit up, no need to be afraid. God said, I have called you by name and you are mine. So why not let your light shine? Legacy, your footprint, your mark that you leave on the world. Legacy does not care who you are, whether you have kids or a family, whether you're living happy or unhappily. You've got a legacy, whether you like it or not. So it's better to give it all you've got. Live a life that matters before the final chapter. Let your life bring forth light. Live extraordinarily. Live with purpose. Live with drive. Be the lion when others are playing sheep. Be the leader when others are asleep. So that when they tell your story, they can say, he gave it his all. She was ready for more. They were ready for all. And at the end, you can say, you gave it your all. Legacy. Thank you.
Wow. That was great. I was shocked.
I love the end part where you said at the end, you can say you gave it your all. I think that's something that all of us should pray to be able to say at the end of our lives. That statement reminds me of the story T.D. Jakes shared about his dad, who on his deathbed said these words. He said, son, by the time I knew what life was all about, it was time to go. The worst way to live life is to live life. And when it's time to go, then you realize what life is all about. So Nayon, thank you so much for that
Thank you for having me.
amazing word.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, Shania, thank you. That was just, that was spot on. It was short, but it was sweet. And I think it just captures the whole essence, of what legacy is and what, legacy represents. And yes, I think it just speaks to the very heart. I've got this quote from John Lewis, all right, and I love this quote, okay? So, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? In fact, that's where his quote ends. But you see, if not together, then how? That's it. So this is our time. If not us, then who? God is counting on us at this time. So if we do not rise up, then we will do it. And if we don't do it now in our time, when we have the opportunity, when we have the capacity, when are we going to do it? Now is the time. So thank you so much for those wonderful, awesome words.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Bless you.
Wow,
Thank you, Shania.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Wow, we're looking forward to a great time today, guys. Thank you
Yes.
for joining us. If you've just joined us, it's going to be amazing. This session will be amazing. So we encourage you, please share the link to everyone. And for our people watching on Mixer or listening on Mixer, we want to thank you for listening and tuning in every time. So please share the link to all your friends and your networks. Let's get it rolling. Dr. Sam, are you ready?
Yes, very, very, very ready. Today we have two amazing speakers speaking concurrently together. And this two, by the grace of God, we've prayed for them. And not only that, we are very sure that the Spirit of God lives in them. And that means that what we're about to hear is straight from the throne of grace. And it's my great pleasure and delight to introduce Dale MacArthur. Right now, and of course, Dr. Nee would be introducing our amazing. She's not a guest; she's like one of us. We're together.
One of
We're
us.
together.
Yes.
Wendy Bonds. But let me just introduce Dale MacArthur. So Dale is a transformational change professional with over 30 years leadership experience and gifted in developing leaders' capability and potential. He finds joy in helping people at all levels within organizations and individuals, discovering who they should be and how they can lead for success in all areas of their lives. Dale says, I am not a preacher, nor even a traditional teacher. However, I lead men on a journey of discovery themselves. Some of the wonderful outcomes God has delivered for men in the 10 plus years of Dale communicating with men in this way has been saved lives, saved marriages, healed hearts, inspired men towards a new relationship with their spiritual father, connected men together for mutual support, and reset their relationships with their wives and children. Dale is Dale's works as shown in various ways, from creating the safe and open spaces for men to be brave about themselves. And in some of these spaces, men have been able to discover their identity or realize some of the issues that they faced. Their hearts are exposed to the truths about themselves and their relationship with God. They are challenged to seize the truth revealed within and to move forward to with renewed hearts. And it challenges men and women, of course, to live fully in their purpose. Today, please join me in welcoming Dale MacArthur.
Oh, yes.
Welcome, Dale.
Welcome.
Great to see you, Dale. How do you feel?
We've got no sound.
You're mute.
No, we can hear you now. We can hear you now, Dale.
Good, awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction, and it's very exciting and a privilege to be here. I've just engaged in your introduction this morning and been moved already. Both the worship and the word that was shared was encouraging, inspiring, and challenging. And I'm thrilled to be here. It's a privilege. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dale, for being here. Well, I'm going to introduce Wendy. Wendy is part of us. She's one of the co-hosts for this event, but she still needs some form of formal introduction. From being born in an impoverished circumstances, Wendy has risen to become an author, an inspirational speaker, and a leadership coach. Our main work is to reveal the remarkable that is within the people she works with. After 20 years of leadership in various Australian government regulatory environments, leading teams through organizational change, in 2012, she decided to commence a consultancy business. Team, and business leadership are among the many areas of expertise that Wendy brings to the table. You'll find out more about that in a book which captures a journey titled The Remarkable You, a journey to discover hope within. Wendy has shared the stage with so many influential leaders in the world, inspiring humanity to reach their potential by taking every opportunity to grow others and herself through a commitment to growth and action. She believes in lifelong learning, that we are never too young to begin and never too old to start this work. In 2013, Wendy joined the John Maxwell University, JMT, where she serves as peer teaching partner and chair of the President's Advisory Council for JMT. By the invitation of the president of Paraguay in 2016, Wendy joined John Maxwell, bringing transformational change to the nation. It's a great honor and privilege to have you here, Wendy Burns. Let's welcome her.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for that. And one before we leave Wendy and Dale, I just want to say something about Wendy. You know, Wendy, you're special. Such a special woman. The first time I heard you speak at all was on the John Maxwell call. I joined your call, and you were I didn't even know you were in Australia. You know, I just joined the call, and I was just new to the John Maxwell team. And, you know, we had so many callers. I remember there was a caller from South Africa who kept repeating himself and asking the same questions, and you kept going over it. You never lost your cool. You just kept
Wow.
explaining it. You told him to go to the portal, and you're trying to answer the questions. And I kept quiet. I didn't want to say anything, but apparently I think you knew all the people on the call. You could see their names or whatever. So you nudged me, and then I came out and, you know, said one or two words, and, you know, I never knew that we would connect. And, you know, you've been a big blessing. You've been an amazing person, and I'm really proud that you're on this team and that we're doing this together. And I just know that you have a message, and your life would continue to inspire thousands and thousands of people. So welcome, Wendy and Dale.
Welcome, Wendy. Welcome.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank you for being your message.
Yes.
Yes, we heard that last night, didn't we, about how from 2 Corinthians to be that living letter, and Andy Hooper talked about living the message. And that's what Dale and I are going to share today about the realization of when we get to live our message or live our legacy, right? That's what it's about. It's a privilege to know you both. And to Dale, God brought us together. He stood at my front door and bought my book when it was published. And he said to me, one day you and I will work together. It was a prophetic word. And I reminded him of that this morning, that, you know, God has ordained way before we were born this very moment for all of us. And that's who our God is. God is good, right?
Hallelujah.
So excited to be here. Hey, Dale, we're excited. We've been waiting.
Well,
Yes.
now.
We have been waiting and been looking forward to the opportunity to share together. And this morning provides that opportunity. So we're thrilled to be here. And I know that I can speak for both of us, Wendy, when I say that it's a privilege to be here together. It's a privilege to be able to share this morning. And it's a privilege that we have something to share, that our life has unfolded in a way that we have something of worth to share. And that's legacy in the making. Welcome, Wendy. It's really wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you, darling. It is. We're going to get underway, and we're going to continue to build on the messages that have already been spoken over those that are watching and those that are listening to the recordings. So we're going to go through and look at some of the things that we're looking at is the past, the legacy that we received, right? And Dale will speak more into that in a moment. We're going to look at where we are today, the choices that we get to make, and you will know that everything I speak about is the power of choice. And then we look at the future, the legacy that you want to leave. So why don't we get underway, Dale?
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Wendy. And I think when you invited me to consider this, God really put on my heart that legacy is not just about the future, but it does have these 3 dimensions of time: past, present, and future. And there's a real significance in understanding the past, the legacy that we received. And there is some truths about legacy. We're going to receive one, and we'll have no choice in that. And we're going to leave one, and we have no choice in that truth. What we do have a choice in is what we do with the legacy we received and the legacy that we create. And it's about waking up ourselves and encouraging one another in those choices. So Wendy, legacy doesn't start at the end, it starts at the beginning. And I think we should share a little about the legacies that we received and how that impacted our journey. Could you share a little bit of your story and maybe in the first dozen years of your life, what was that like for you?
Sure. And before I start to share, I do want to say that my story does contain some very distressing moments. Now, if I don't share them, you won't see how God has moved across my life. So it's really important that I share these details. So it does, every time I share my story, I do say it comes with a warning. So just be mindful. People are praying over these messages, so I know that you will be okay, but reach out if you need help after this session, because my message has stirred something up within you. So I'm going to take you, if I don't share my story, you won't see how God has moved across. And I'm just going to refer to Dr. Samuel last night when he shared about we're given a baton. You know, he used legacy in the form of a baton. So it doesn't start at the beginning. We're given a baton and we leave a baton. So we're given a legacy and we leave a legacy. And sometimes I want to say that the legacy we're given is not necessarily the one that God wants us to live out. And I'm going to share a little bit about that. I'm going to pick up my life when I was 13. Just prior to that, you know, my first 13 years, my home, you know, we lived in the country. We were incredibly poor. My parents were alcoholics. My home was filled very much with domestic violence. Not that you knew the name when I was 13. My home was filled with domestic violence. My father was a very violent man. He was violent to my mother and violent to all of us children. So that was normal, right? But as a child, you quite often don't realize that that's any different. You just think that's a normal part of everyday living. So I want to take you to when I was 13. On this particular day, it was snowing. We lived in a little New South Wales town called Yarralla. And we did what we always did. We'd go to the pub. Mum and Dad, if they weren't out picking fruit or, you know, Dad would work in his own garden or catch animals for us to eat, such as kangaroo and rabbits and, yes, even porcupines. I'm talking about Australian country in those days. They'd be at the pub drinking. And every time to the point of being either passed out in the gutter, where the police would take us home, take us to the station to sleep on the floor to lay sobered up, or sometimes we'd make it home. This particular day, we made it home. When we get home, my father goes and lays on my bed and my mum lays on her bed. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother that was living. 1 little brother passed away at birth. My dad yelled out to me, and let me just say, I was a daddy's girl. It didn't matter how violent he was. You know, we love our fathers. We make excuses for behaviours that we should never make excuses for. I love my dad, so I would do anything he'd ask me to do. And that particular day, he asked me to grab him his rifle. Because I did. I always did as I was told. He was lying on my bed and I brought it in to him, and the moment I handed it to him, he said to me, "This is how you kill yourself." He put the barrel in his mouth and he pulled the trigger. He blew his brains out in front of me. I was 13. In that moment, I raced out in shock, no doubt. But what I had the sense to do was to grab my sisters and my brother and run out of the house. I didn't think about my mum. All I thought about, I did not want them to see what I saw. And as I'm running down the road, I just know it touched itself to me right there in that moment. Responsibility, guilt and shame, because I had just killed my dad, right? In my mind, my 13-year-old mind, I took responsibility for somebody else's actions and I had killed my dad. We ran down the road, across a creek to where an auntie and uncle lived. The police came, of course, you know, no support, no nothing, no counselling, no nothing for this little 13-year-old girl. What did I say to the police? It was an accident. I think I was trying to cover for my dad and for myself because I thought I'd kill my dad. Okay, that's a pretty horrible day, isn't it? How could it possibly get worse, Dale? But it did. So that night when everybody was distressed, I'm sure I was in shock. But I laid with my mum. because she was, overcome until she finally went to sleep. And I remember very vividly, this has never left my mind. I got up, I was walking through my auntie and uncle's house, no doubt crying, distressed. My uncle saw me and yelled out from his bedroom and he said, "Come and lay down with me, let me comfort you." Well, anyone would think that day could possibly not get worse, but it did, because his form of comfort was rape. So his answer to comfort me was to sexually assault me, to rape me there and then. My auntie came in screaming, "Get out, get out, what have you done?" Blamed me, not him, blamed this little 13-year-old girl. So here I am, 13, pain in my heart, pain in my body. Where do you go from there? So what happens? I'm going to go a little bit further, Dale, because I think it's important. Is that okay?
Yes.
Where do you go from there? Mum had lost her drinking partner. So at 13, I became her drinking partner. I had responsibility and shame all over me. Shame for what had happened. Not that I knew what sexual assault and rape was then when I was 13. But I took responsibility for his actions. I took responsibility for my dad's actions. And guilt and shame, humiliation, all of those things attached themselves to me. So Mum needed a drinking partner and I became it. So between 13 and 15, I would often find myself drinking with my mum to the point of passing out. We came under the eyes of the welfare, as you would imagine, and they ended up taking away my two sisters and my brother. My older sister ran away. Let me just get a drink of water.
Thank you, Wendy.
And we moved to Sydney when I was 15. My mum fought to get the kids back. She was an alcoholic. She was also addicted to a drug called morphine. So she was in a bad way, but she sobered herself up enough to get them back. And I can remember travelling with her on the train to the courthouse in Armidale to go before the courts to get them back many, many times. When she finally did get them back, we got them home and she sobered up enough to get them back, but then the addictions come back. So she was in a bad way. She had lots of men in and out of the house, to the point that one of them drugged my sister and raped her little sister. So life was pretty horrid, right? Life was horrid. How can you turn this around? When I was 17, my mum gave up and took her own life. So this pattern, this generational inheritance, this legacy that I was given of suicide, alcoholism, sexual abuse, violence, was passed on. They were hopeless and I inherited that. So how do we do that without Jesus, right? So I lived this horrible life till I was 34. That's when things changed. I'm not going to tell you what it was yet. Dale.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And I'm always moved when you share this, and you've shared it with me directly, and we've shared it together before. And I'm seeing the comments of people coming through, and they are the comments of shock, Wendy, and they're like me, struggling to fathom that this could play out in someone's life, and yet it's real, and you're not the only person with a story like this. And some of the things that Wendy has shared with me over the years is even though all of that hardship, her dad was a hero, and to me that speaks to me as a man, and it speaks to me as a father that we have an amazing opportunity to impact our children. And Wendy touches our heart through the story. I love Wendy's story, not because of the hardship, but because there's really nowhere to hide. When I hear Wendy's stories, all my excuses about my life actually evaporate and go, right, I need to look in the mirror and look at where I am and where I'm going. And Wendy's story, while with a pretty sad beginning, is a story of rejoicing and a story of restoration and healing. So stick with us, because this is a great story.
Dale, I'd love you to share some. Did you want me to share more, or did you want to share some of your story before I go further?
Yeah, I'm happy to share now, Wendy.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
And, you know, when I was being introduced there, I was talking about me speaking to men, and that's been a focus that of ministry for me, is speaking to men. But my target is actually women and children.
Yeah.
I grew up in a home where it wasn't a very safe place really either, and it's impossible for me to compare my story with Wendy, but there are some parallels. And we were in a poor home as well, an uneducated home, and my dad was a veteran of World War II. He became an alcoholic, and I grew up in a home where I believe my mother and father had a diminishing impact on each other. They weren't lifting each other up. They didn't know how to do that. And my dad was often very angry. And alcoholism brings instability and unpredictability to a home. So one day I would have a loving dad, and the next day you'd have someone in rage, and you really didn't know how to navigate that as a child. I learned a lot of wonderful things from my dad, and there was a serious range of things that I didn't learn. I didn't learn how to love a woman, and I didn't learn how to be gentle and patient with children. And so when I hit my teens, I was really had a bunch of deficits there that I didn't know how to fill. And I went to try and respond to those to the world, and things started to get seriously messed up from there for some time. So I think, was handed a baton that certainly wasn't complete and whole, but I, as a young man, I started to realize that life is like a handicap race. And some of us are given a beautiful start in life, and that's to be celebrated and acknowledged, and even examined to go, what's wonderful that I've received that I need to repeat, I need to build on, and I need to be thankful for. And some of us have got a mediocre start where some things are good and some things need some attention. And some of us have quite a deficit in our beginning, and that needs to really be acknowledged. What would you add to that, Wendy?
Oh, you're right. We everybody is different, and I think what you've shared is right, Dale. Everybody has a story of some form, but you know, as graphic as mine may be, and yours as well, Dale, we all have a story. It's what we do with the story that makes a difference. It's how we pick up that baton, or how we pick up that legacy and think about what we do. And I know we're both going to go a little bit further into that, but so important. We have a choice, and you know, our session was labeled as the power of choice. It's just, you know, it's everything I believe in, Dale.
Yes, and I think along the way and journey, Wendy's about to. Someone's just made a comment, Wendy. It says, "I see the beauty of God on you," and I'm moved by that. I saw that. I saw that in you, and I saw the restoration and healing that God's done in your life, and your ability to impact people now is the full story. And so
that's right, the full
yes.
story, not just a part of it.
Yes, and so we have the opportunity in our life to recognize that we become the authors. So at some point in our journey, we can be the author of our middle and end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dale, would you like me to share a little bit now about where I was, where I went? How did I turn this around?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So for the first 34 years of my life were absolutely horrid. So many times I wished myself dead, because what we learn from our parents, and Dale, you've already touched on that about your dad and the influence he had on you. We don't realize the impact of those we love and our family members upon us. The impact imprints on our hearts, and we play out what we see. So for me, the impact of my parents' decisions was, when life got too tough, guess what? You get to choose. Take your life. Too hopeless, take your life. We know that's never an answer. Let me just put a prefaces on that. There is always hope. They lived a life of hopelessness, and I inherited that, as did my brother and my sisters. Two of my sisters, my younger sisters, passed away from alcohol abuse. And my brother and my other sister have found their way through it. So it is a choice. Where do I go? Here I am. I lived this incredible life of, I was angry, I was bitter, the world owed me, I blamed everybody for my life. I was bitter, angry, I was not a nice person to be around. You may look at me and think, how could that be? But let me tell you, it was really true. Suicide was always my option, and nobody would have known anything about it. When I was 34, I realized that if this generational inheritance that I'd been given was going to continue, I want to go back. I realized when I was 34 that I had a choice. Life was out of control. It was a messy situation. My marriage was full of domestic violence. I was already married twice. I had 4 children. It was incredibly horrible. What was I going to do? And I looked at my children. I honestly looked at my children and I thought, are they going to inherit what I've inherited? Are they going to live the life that I've lived? And I realized that something needed to change. So what did I do? I started to go to a little Anglican church. No idea why, right? But God has his way of drawing us. He will never leave us if he is always calling out to us. I went to this little Anglican church. I took my children. I was drinking heavily because that was the pattern that my parents had showed me. I'm sure I turned up there times, hungover and smelling of alcohol. These people loved me. One night they invited me to go and hear a specific speaker. And I thought, no way am I going to that. But just like God, he will always get you where he wants you to be. So I went along, and I didn't really understand Jesus. I didn't understand relationship. I didn't understand God. The only God I knew, I went to a Catholic school, was this violent God that would blame me, because that's what the nuns would teach me, that he was a mean, not a nice God. So that was the God that I feared. I go to this message, and it was Bishop Hamish James was the man that spoke. And he did an altar call. Not that I knew what that was, but he asked people to come out that wanted to change their life. I was the first one out. I couldn't get out of that pew fast enough. I knew that something needed to change. Here I am, 34. My life was hopeless. I go out the front, and the lady that prayed for me, she said to me, God knows the guilt you carried over your father's death. Right? God got my attention. Let me repeat that. These are strangers to me. She says to me, God knows the guilt you carried over your father's death. My husband didn't even know. My family didn't even know. I did not share my past with anybody. God got my attention that day. Everything changed in that moment within me. I had to work it out. I had to work it through. But what happened was, I had been carrying this guilt and shame and humiliation, anger. But this God that I feared, this God that I'd been taught to fear, told me that he knew the guilt that I'd carried. He cared about me enough to have this stranger say to me that God loves you. Sure, I still had to go home and wake up in the same bed in the same circumstances, But what happened in that moment? God planted a seed of hope in my heart.
Mm. Wonderful, Wendy. We've gone from a story of devastation to a story of new beginnings here, as you enter into this small little church and receive this invitation, an invitation to come forward and accept God, and someone knows you without even knowing you through God's intervention, is able to speak to the very significant need in your heart around what you've been carrying. And yes, you go.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to say, in those moments when we make that decision, when it was for me, I realized I had the power of choice. That was the first time I realized I had the power of choice. I couldn't choose this legacy that I'd been given, this baton I'd been handed. I had no choice in that. It was imposed upon me by my parents. But in that moment, something deep within who I was, that God had placed within me, this power of choice. Sure, I still had to walk that out. It doesn't mean that everything changes like that. And I really want to say that to you. Maybe for some it does. Maybe everything becomes a bed of roses, but it certainly didn't for me. Because when God calls us, he calls us to partner with him. He calls us to walk alongside him and to continue to make great choices. See, what we empower devours us. What we empower devours us. I was empowering this legacy of this alcoholism and suicidal thoughts and abuse over my life. I was accepting it and empowering it. In that moment when I made that choice, I gave Jesus permission to come into my life. I was empowering a different choice. I still had to walk it out. But in walking it out, God has revealed his visibility to me in those moments. I just want to say one thing, darling. I want to come back to you about your choices. I still carried that spirit of suicide, and we will come back to that, Dale, because I sat there in church and I still carried a spirit of suicide. And it's something we need to speak about. But before we go there, I want to come back and ask you about, how did you turn that situation you were around in? How did you make some different choices?
Wendy, we've never shared our stories together, and
I know.
I'm seeing parallel chapters here, which is quite amazing. So, I became an adult, and some of the legacy that I received, the brokenness that I received, meant that I was engaging in pretty destructive relationships that would either hurt me or hurt other people. It was really, and I like to think I was a nice person. I was a caring person, but I was creating damage everywhere I went in relationships. And at 21, I had a revelation, and the revelation was that there's one thing that's constant in all the challenges of my life. There's one common denominator here, and that's me.
Dale? Yeah.
That's me. I'm in the middle of all my problems. And so I actually was excited by that, because I came to a point of saying, well, if it's me that's the issue, then I can do something about that. And there's something I can do. And I went on a journey of self-development. I was not a Christian at all. And so I read books and I grew and I tried to change myself. And I did everything in my power to become the man that I would want to be. And I think I learned some things and I grew, but I didn't really deal with what was in my heart.
Yes.
And I find myself at 30, 32, I'm married, and I've got a daughter. And the strongest driver in my life, the legacy I was left, which turned into a positive, was I had a strong, strong longing to be a loving husband, that my wife would be able to say, I am so better off because Dale's in my life. I'm encouraged to grow and become who I should be because God's in my life. And I became a father, and I had two drivers become a loving husband and a loving father. And but I wasn't that man, Wendy. As a young married man and a young father, I found myself angry often. I found myself insecure. I found myself doing damage where I wanted to be a blessing. And I was getting to the end of myself, meaning, wow, I don't know what else I can do here. And God sent the Christians. He surrounded us. A lovely couple moved in next door, and that were a Christian couple. And I was looking for ways to change now. I was hungry to find a better way to be a new me. And while I don't need to share all the story, I went to a large gathering like you, Wendy. Wild horses wouldn't have kept me away. I went by myself and I gave my life, and I really didn't know anybody else, but I was now on a different path. And I couldn't believe the difference between making that decision or not. And it was hearing a testimony. I heard somebody's story as we're hearing today. And I heard a story of a man, his legacy, and what had transpired after he'd given his life. And I just thought, if God can do that, this God, I didn't know God, if God can do that in this man's life, maybe he could do something in my life. And that was enough for me to say, please, God, have my life and see what you can do, what you can fix, what you can create, because I need help.
That's fabulous, Dale. And look at the man you are today because of the power of choices that you made.
And wonderful, Wendy. As I started to, the biggest impact on me was God's love. It was not something I'd experienced or even understood before what love was, and so to feel this unlimited love, fully accepted of who I was the beginning of healing who I'd been. And to know that God had a plan and a purpose for me, well, I was keen to discover that. And here I had people living in my home, my wife and 2 children now, and they were going to experience who I was. So I had this strong motive to continue to grow and change, and that unfolded. But amazingly, so I did a journey for quite a few years in a Christian journey, and I was hearing a message one day, and it really occurred to me that what I needed was healing.
Yes.
I'm trying my best. I'm trying to grow. I'm becoming different, but I've got a broken heart, and that's playing out in who I am.
Yes.
And that brokenness was hurting me and hurting others. And so here's my legacy happening. I've got a desire. I'm trying my hardest, and yet the legacy I received is still causing damage to the ones I love the most. And in 2011 this was, so that's only 10 years ago now, and I've been a Christian for quite a number of years. At that point, I sat in church and I heard a story of healing. And I took God up on his promise, and I spoke to him in a different way than I'd ever done before. I said, if you're promising healing, I want you to honor that promise. I will do whatever I've got to do, but I want this healing in my life. It moves me even thinking back to those days. Yeah.
And how faithful is our God? You know, Dr. Samuel said last night, judge God as faithful. He is such a faithful God. Because Dale, he went on and healed you, right?
Yeah, amazing. So, then I started, because we've got to converse with God. We've got to ask for that healing. One thing I've known in retrospect is that he respects us enough to leave us just as we are until we want to change, until we ask for that healing.
Yeah.
And so we've got to go after that. That was my experience. So I said to God, I don't know how to be healed. I don't know what to do next, but I'm going to give you half a day. I'm going to go up to the mountains, which I often did near my place, and spend some time with your Lord. And I'll do whatever you want me to do, but let's start this healing.
No,
Well,
wow.
unbeknownst to me, I didn't have any plan, but that day we spent 4 hours unpacking the past. And
Wow.
it was a beautiful experience where I unpacked my childhood. And, you know, Wendy, I'm not sure if I've even shared this with you, but in that part of unpacking my childhood, I was looking at things I needed to be thankful for, things I needed forgiveness for, and things I needed to remember. And in that engagement with God, he said, I made you a leader, remember? And he showed me times in my childhood where I'd been a leader, but that had been stolen from me. And so guess who's a stealer? Our enemy wants to steal and kill and destroy our identity. And he reminded me, I made you a leader. And then we did some healing work. We worked through what was probably 16 to 21. And I walked for a couple of hours in the pouring rain and took everything to him and said, please heal this. Help me to forgive this. Please give me forgiveness around this. And we just did this amazing healing work, which God led me in. I didn't know what I was doing, but he led me, and it was magnificent.
Praise God, praise God, praise God.
Now, Wendy, that was only 10 years ago, and that really separated me from the baggage of my past. And now
Excellent.
I'm walking forward with strength and God's confidence within me to lead, because the call to leaders is to embrace leadership. If you're called to lead, then the call is to embrace leadership.
Absolutely. And it starts with self-leadership. And you've explained that really beautifully, Dale, on how you realized that you needed that healing and how you worked with God, because God calls us to partner with him. You know, how do we partner with him to bring about his purpose or his legacy? And Dale, I'm just going to share a little bit now about how I walk that road.
Yes, please.
34, I make this choice to accept Jesus. For me, remember in my background, as I shared earlier, I have this thought of this God that still is a bit of a, mean God, like I'm still frightened of God, not a healthy fear of God, an unhealthy fear of God. So what I realized, what I did is I took every opportunity to grow like you. I was doing everything that I could to change and grow. But what I did was differently is I looked at every time I grew, I was thinking that the label of who I become made me who I was. This is a really important message for somebody today. I thought the label that I had, the job that I had, the education that I sought for myself to create this better life would make me who I was. But you know what? God never leaves us there. I was sitting in a church, still carrying this spirit of suicide every time things got tough. I was still contemplating in my mind, well, I know the choice that I have. I was still carrying this baggage, this heavy baggage that I had not dealt with. I heard a friend of mine shared, and it was a quote from Andy Stanley, a pastor, maybe people know him. But he says, unless we deal with the stuff, the baggage, it's like demons in our soul that lift weights. So it goes to our soul and lifts weights until we deal with it. We must deal with it. Dealing with it is all about forgiveness, right? That's another thing we need to talk about before we finish today, Dale, about the importance of forgiveness. What happened for me is I know God will never leave us. He will give us a choice. He will give us a choice to bring us out of a situation, always a choice. I was by this stage, and I moved in my career into government. This 13-year-old girl with no education became a senior leader in government in Queensland, until I had some very false allegations placed against me and put before the Crime and Misconduct Commission. It was a really big deal, right? Bribery, all sorts of things, all lies. all lies. Nothing was truth, and it was found out, of course, that it was lies. But what it was, God used this moment, right? Because my label, my job, my title made me who I was. God loved me too much to leave me there. I pinned everything on that. I didn't understand relationship with God. I knew God. I knew what I was learning from church, but I didn't quite understand this relationship with God, this walking hand in hand with God. I'm told I'm stood down while I'm under investigation. I remember that day so well. Dale, you'll probably remember it, that red dust storm that hit Queensland, that hit Brisbane. It covered, for those that are listening, it covered parts of Australia. You can see it on Wikipedia. It explains it. You could not see your hand in front of your face. It was dark. It was like this day just closed in on you. I was sent home that day. The next morning, my husband goes off to work. My life was over, you see. Even though I'd accepted Jesus, I was still carrying this suicide. My life felt like it was over. I'd lost my label. What was going to happen? I was no longer this senior leadership person. I remember vividly thinking, well, I know what I'll do. I'll take my life because there's nothing left. I'm better just to leave this world because I still had this pattern my parents had shown me. I remember getting on my knees in my lounge room and I kneeled down, and the scripture that tells us about the woman with the issue of blood, where she reached out and touched the gown of Jesus as he walked past. She knew that if she touched his gown, he'd be healed. I reached out that day in faith. I reached out because I had two options: find Jesus, to see that he was really real, or to take my life. They were my options. And hear my heart. That is the truth of my story. I reached out in faith on my lounge room floor in this darkness around me that was enveloping me, telling me that that was the best choice. Take your life, take your life, take your life. That's the best choice. That's what you've experienced. And as I reach out to Jesus, he moved in. So he requires us to reach out in faith, to reach out our hand to him. And honestly, he moved in, that this darkness dispelled before me. It was like everything around me pushed back. And for the first time in my life, this sense of this suicidal stuff that had hounded me all my life, because it was the last bit of that legacy my parents had handed me, just faded. God took it away. That was a moment that Jesus moved in. My life was saved in that moment. I still walk through that sense of, now what do we do? Now what do we do? I went through the healing of forgiveness, forgiving my parents, forgiving my uncle, forgiving all of those that had hurt me. And the biggest thing, please hear my heart, guys, forgiving yourself. See, we blame ourselves and we carry that past. I love, there's a scripture I want to share with you, and I'll hand back to Dale, where it says in Psalm 139, it says, and reading from the Passion, my well-loved Passion version, Lord, you know everything there is to know about me. You perceive every movement of my heart and soul. You understand my every thought before it even enters my mind. You are intimately aware of me, Lord. You read my heart like an open book, and you know all the words I'm about to speak. Jesus knew what I was about to do, even before I start a sentence. You know every step I will take before my journey even begins. Now listen to this. You've gone into my future to prepare the way, to take that baton he has for us, that legacy, and in kindness you follow behind me to protect me from the harm of my past. God was going to protect me from the harm of my past if I made the choice to accept him, to take that legacy. That's what we're called to do. We're given a legacy. Maybe it's not what we're meant to be walking in, but we get to change that generational inheritance, to pick up the baton that he's called us to pick up.
Thank you again, Wendy, for sharing. I've got my heart in my throat, really impacted once again, and I know that all our listeners will be impacted. Someone's just asked what that Bible passage was, Wendy.
Sure. It's Psalm 139 in the Passion version. You can see mine is very well worn.
And I just want to talk to our audience there for a moment, because they're hearing of a devastating upbringing, and then they're seeing this woman who's speaking. And if you're like me, guys, you're going, wow, this is a profoundly different person to who Wendy grew up to be. And it's this is the joy of Wendy's story, and the absolute grace of God and the power of God to heal and create new beginnings in anyone's story. I really love Wendy's story, because I just think there's nowhere that any of us can hide when we hear Wendy's story. And I think Wendy's making a very important point there about identity. You know, what is it that gives me security? And Wendy's had at times job descriptions and roles, and yet what happened that day was she took on the identity as daughter, a daughter to the Father, loving Father, who wants to take us from a state of being orphans, spiritual orphans, to sons and daughters. And I think, Wendy, you and I have talked about it, that we're all broken. We're all broken at some level. We haven't all got a story like Wendy's or mine, and some will be worse than mine. And one thing that I have come to terms with as I've dealt with people's stories over many years now is pain is pain.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, it's almost not worth much to say, oh, their stories are much worse than mine, so I've got nothing to worry about here. If we've got woundedness in our heart, then it's actually the biggest gift we can give to the people we love to go after that healing.
Oh, yes.
As you look at Wendy now, you know that's happened. You know that she's not bound by really challenging past. And that's what Jesus promises to. In Isaiah, the foretelling of Jesus's ministry says that he's come to heal the brokenhearted. And that's what I responded to that day, that my heart needed healing. He's come to set us free, release us from the darkness, and give us vision, give us sight. And when we start to think about what impact we're having, then vision and purpose starts to become elements that are valuable for us. But before we go there, Wendy, I think you and I would probably strongly agree that I think sometimes people can get bought into the second half of the story before they've dealt with the first one, which is, I should be creating something amazing here. Well, I think give yourself some grace and say, if it's healing you need, then that's the best part of your legacy that you can be working on.
Oh, look, I agree. You know, don't jump ahead. You know, transformation begins in us. We must heal ourselves first before we can heal our land, right? We heal ourselves first before we heal our land, and we heal others. You know, transformation begins in us. And I think that is so important, isn't it, Dale? You know, what Dale and I have been speaking about today is about the power of self-leadership. Can I just share something with you, Dale? And it's from an incredible book by Andy Stanley, and he talks about, and this is exactly what you're talking about. It's called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. And he says, your legacy, your mark, your footprints on the future are determined by the decisions you make today. Healing is part of that decision. And we never know what hangs in the balance of the decisions we make, that we know that private decisions have public outcomes. See, the private decisions my parents made had a public outcome on me. So every decision we make, whether we take the time now to stop and to heal ourselves, or whether you run ahead like I did into, okay, I'm going to be this great person and grab a label and be the best I can be, still carrying all the stuff I needed to heal. That was a decision I made, a private decision, but it played out in a public outcome. So every decision we make. So going back to that healing, and as you go through that healing, I don't know about you that day in the bush walking in the rain. I know when I went through it, Dale, I can remember very vividly the Holy Spirit was showing me that when I ran down the road that day, as that 13-year-old girl, that Jesus ran with me. That he was right there beside me. That even though I felt so isolated in those moments, that he was there. But he also showed me that I could find a purpose in my pain. See, there's a purpose to our story. Dr. Samuel said last night, we can choose to pick up this baton of legacy. We can choose to pick it up, or we cannot, and we can live an aimless life without it. But I have chosen to pick it up. And you know what? As bad as my story has been, and our stories matter, we have the privilege of coming to the microphone today. Dale and I have the privilege. Our guest speakers have the privilege. Samuel and Nee have the privilege. But your story is as important as ours. So important. It's when we share our story, as bad and as horrible as it is, it becomes a testimony of God's grace and mercy, of God's faithfulness, that we can judge him faithful. Look at our lives and see that you can judge him faithful. You know, this is our truth. This is our story. You will have a story that will impact so many other people. And we know, Dale, it's all about the daily choices we make, isn't it?
It is, Wendy. And you speak very well about that, and you challenge me every time you do. I think we talked about legacy having 3 time elements to it, which was past, present, and future. And future is often what we think about when we think about legacy. What are we going to leave behind? What impact? And for me, Wendy, I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit and then come back to these daily choices, if that's okay.
Yes.
I had the privilege of engaging in an exercise in a workplace training thing where they got us to write our eulogy, and that was a vision, really. That was the ultimate vision. What would you like people to say at your funeral? And I wrote down what I didn't get part. They said, imagine your friends and family there, and what would you like them to say? I took this exercise very seriously, and but I couldn't get beyond writing down what I wanted my wife to say. What would be the legacy of my impact on her? And I wrote that down. It was pretty simple, but it was about being a loving husband that created a safe space for her to grow and to flourish, and to listen to her dreams. And then they got us to write down, what would she say if you passed away today? And I wrote that. And I'm sorry to say there was a big, big gulf there. And that gulf, the gap that existed, so I would have written down something like, some days you're all right, other days you're doing damage, other days you're diminishing and belittling and you're angry, but that gap between those 2 statements became the mission in my marriage. I need to become the man that would produce the desirable result. It wasn't wishful thinking or I'm going to do stuff. I need to change, and I need to become the man that would produce that outcome. And that propelled me forward for a long time, and it still serves me well. I call that vision, now starting to envision, starting to write the future. And I was a pretty simple guy. All I wanted to be was a loving husband, loving father. I wasn't imagining anything that God has played out in my life. That's all I was going after. What he's done is, through that journey, turned me into someone that he was able to use in many different ways. And I probably have been able to speak to many men about their role as husband and fathers and friends to one another. So I think this element of vision, and in the background behind me is pictures on the wall, and they're actually visions for me. So I surround myself with pictures of the future. So because I'm not that good at creating pictures, so I get pictures and stick them on the wall so I see what it is that I want in the future. I think this is the second part, Wendy. If we've gone through, we've accepted that invitation for healing. And, you know, I just want to say before we leave that, if that's you, how do you know if you need healing? If you've got pain in your heart, you need healing. If you're tripping over the past, you need healing.
Oh, yes.
If you're having conversations with people from your past in your head, you need healing. And but we want to leave that behind, but do not leave that, do not forget that as we start.
Do not leave it undone. Do not
Yeah.
leave that undone. It's so important, isn't it, Dale? That otherwise it becomes that, like I said, demons in your soul lifting weights, because it'll still be there. You go through the healing stage, because that will empower you to go on to what God's called you to do.
And so the scripture says that God has a plan and purpose for us. And
He does.
I don't know about you, Wendy, but he hasn't been brave enough to show me much at a time. I think he thinks he'll scare me. So he really only shows me a little bit of vision at a time, and I just try and do that. So I had a vision for my marriage and my family, and I now have a grown-up family, and I'm so pleased to be able to share with you that that vision has played out. I'm about to become a grandfather in a few months' time, and new chapters of that story is unfolding. In the meantime, God's been able to use me, particularly in men's ministry. Have a strong heart for women and children, but that's the place that He's put me in, and so I've got new visions forming now at 59 about the next chapter. And I think that's a useful way to think about life, because it's a big piece, but what is the season I'm in, and what's my vision for that season? Wendy, you've often used words like purpose when we talk around these things. I'd love you to share on that purpose piece.
Sure. And you're right. Life is made up of many different chapters. And, you know, each day we get a blank sheet every single day. I'm just going to hold it up. See this? We get this blank sheet every single day. And we get to write on it by our choices and our purpose. And I just want to say one thing back about my past, and then I want to talk to you about how we should look at our past. When I was 15, I was riding on a bus, and I remember this impression came over me, and I speak about it in my book, that I would be a woman of influence. And it was only after I'd finally dealt with that suicide that day that God brought that back to me. Not that I knew that it was from God at the time, but I speak out that I am a woman of influence. I speak out the purpose that God has given me. I found purpose in the pain of my life. And that's what comes from sharing our stories. For me, it is about that daily purpose, knowing that transformation begins in us. The choices we make every day, Dale, you know, setting up, and, you know, I'm all about in purpose. I'm all about the values-based leadership and thinking about what are our values? What are the things that we will not negotiate on? Because as you start to walk with God, as you start to live your legacy, carry that baton well, because as Dr. Samuel said last night, you will pass it on to somebody else. I am creating a legacy that I will pass on to my children and my 14 grandchildren, so that they have a different legacy. So the choices I make every day, you know, thinking about what are my guardrails that I put around myself to ensure that I don't fall off and go down the wrong path. And I think that's really important, isn't it, as we look at purpose, understanding our purpose. Because when we lose our way, when we lose our why we're doing something, we lose our way on our journey, don't we, Dale?
Yes.
You know, so that is so important. So thinking about what are your values, because we start in any leadership role, we're talking about visionary leaders today, and you're never too young to start that. And my goodness, you are never too old. You know, I will go till the day God takes me to heaven. I will still be speaking about His purpose and His goodness. But knowing about the things that you will do every day, the daily choices that you make impact your legacy. Dale, what are some of the daily choices you make?
I love that, Wendy, when we start to talk about legacy and recognizing that it's created today. It's
Absolutely.
created today and tomorrow and all the todays and tomorrows ahead. So it's only numerous small choices that add up to a big outcome.
Exactly.
And so some of the daily choices that I make, I think one of the challenges that I've journeyed with is the idea of leadership, Wendy. Even you've spoken to me about this. I might classify myself as a reluctant leader. And I certainly have talked to God about that. So if he's calling me to leadership, sometimes I'll feel unworthy about that. What I'm trying to do daily is learning to embrace the call to leadership. And
Yes.
in the moments I do that, then God's immediately free to give me vision. As soon as I go, okay, if you want me to lead, I'll lead. And he's immediately showing me the way. And it's a free path. It's not a hard path. It's not a heavy path. It's, I love that Jesus says, my ways aren't heavy. Your burden is light. And so when I'm in line with God, in his purposes, then the journey is light and it's easy for me to lead.
Absolutely. I love that, Dale.
So, Wendy, you've got something to share.
I was just thinking of what DDK said on the first session yesterday, and walk the talk, talk the walk. And I just, I love that. That's what we get to do. Like when we make those choices every day. And for me, I speak it out at every opportunity that I get, because I speak out what God has put over my life. Grab the visions, grab the words that people have given you, pray over them, and be sure that they are from God. We should always pray over the words people have given us and then speak them out. I have all of mine up on the wall here. I have all the words that God has given me, and I trust that he will bring them out. So what do I do every day? I declare that I am his woman of influence. I declare that I choose to know. I have really strong choose to know statements. I choose to know whose I am and who I am. I know that I am a daughter of the High King, and that I am his ambassador, and I represent him well. I want to represent him well in everything that I do. I never want to leave anything on the table. I want to take my pain and create this incredible purpose to be able to speak into others' lives, to enable them to be the very best. We've spoken about my book, Remarkable You, over these sessions. And I'm not saying that now to sell it to you. Dale's got it there in front of him. This is about knowing that each one of us has a remarkable within us. God planted that gold within us. The enemy will do everything he can to stop us digging that up. He will fill it over with baggage and disbeliefs and lies and bogus stories and all of those things. But there is a remarkable within each person. And asking Jesus to reveal that to you, to reveal that purpose, to partner with him, to choose every day about your choices. I said earlier, private decisions have public outcomes. If I choose not to take any intentional action today to continue to grow myself or to continue to be thankful and grateful, I bookend my day with thanksgiving in the morning and being grateful at the end of the day. I'm grateful for every door that God opens, for every opportunity where I get to speak. And I know you are too, Dale. We never, ever take any of this for granted. This is about making right choices every day, because what we continue to do compounds. And sometimes we are perfectly imperfect, right? We are all perfectly imperfect until we get to heaven. And sometimes our choices won't always be the best choices. That doesn't mean we've fallen away and can't come back. It means, okay, there's been a misstep in my life. So what do I do to get back on track? So if we go off into someone else's lane, as Dr. Samuel said, come back, get yourself back. Do not be distracted by the bright, shiny things that the world offers. Stay on the path that God has called you to be on, and being responsible. Responsible. Responsibility is responsible. We are able to be responsible for ourselves, For too long, I was responsible for my parents' choices, for the bad choices that was made around me. And I'm sure, Dale, you were the same. But when we start to be responsible for our choices and not for anybody else's, for the things we can control and not for the things we can't control, and we submit our lives to God. I think it's Psalm 5 in the Passion says that we lay our life out in the altar every day. You know, I pray that prayer. I lay my life out to God every day, and I ask him to ignite within my heart what he's placed there and to take away what's not him. You know, we get to do this. We get to choose every day to be his vessels.
Wonderful, Wendy. Some people are writing up some congratulations to me along the way there, and I just want, and I'm able to share this with my family. There's nothing good in me that hasn't come from God, and if there's any glory for my family, that's it was God's vision of what he wanted to create. You asked me about what I do on a daily basis, Wendy, and I probably didn't answer that well. And the truth would be, I'm not always that consistent. And I think
It's okay.
that, I just want to say that even in the last couple of years, I think COVID and its impact on my business, I found myself pretty lost and confused. And so even with this invitation to speak about legacy has actually been a really positive catalyst for me to consider where I am, what choices have I been making, and to reset. Some wise man once said to me, when you're maybe in a bicycle race, if you fell over, you don't grab your bike and run back to the beginning. You just get back on. And getting back on your bike, I think, means resetting yourself with God and reconnecting, reaffirming who you are. And my version of that, Wendy, is that I am a champion son of the King.
Amen.
A champion
Amen.
son of the King. That's who I am. And he can do something with that. And so seeking short accounts with God about seeking forgiveness. God's ready, always ready to forgive us and give us a new start. I just wanted to share that I had a sabbatical a little while back, and I took a year off, and it was about saying, God, what's in the next season for me? And I'd go walking in the bush, and I'd walk around these mountain paths, and after a year he answered me, and the answer left me a little bit cold, but the answer was, Dale, walk to the next corner and I'll show you what's around that. And this is about vision and legacy for me, is that if I'm willing to go to the next bit that God's revealing to me, then he'll keep building.
Yeah,
He'll
I
keep
love that.
growing what that legacy is. So I'm excited about the future because I can't imagine it. God imagines well beyond what I can imagine. And what he's already done in my life is well beyond what I could already imagine. And so I think it's
Amen.
walking with God and letting him lead you to his legacy, the legacy that he wants to create. I consider my life a chapter in his book. It's called Dale
Amen.
MacArthur. It's in God's book, and he's writing it, and I'm going to co-author that with him. So it's learning to walk with God and to trust him, to talk to him, to be able to listen. I don't spend enough time listening. I do a lot of talking, but when I listen, he's ready, that still small voice to guide me.
Dale, I agree. And you know, even though sometimes we don't get it right, we can still get it right. Dale, I feel so impressed upon me right in this moment, just to share, to read from my book, this last final little bit that I feel I'm meant to read. Is that okay?
Definitely.
This is about discovering the remarkable within you. And I'm just going to read from my book. In marathons in ancient Greece, a torch was handed to each runner at the starting line. To win, a runner had to cross the finish line with their torch still burning. The torch race was a tough one, which led through mountains and valleys. Doubtless there were times when others would pass the winning runner by, when their strength would fail, when they would lose their way or they would stumble, when they had to retrace their steps to get back on track. But what counted in the race was not their style, but their staying power. In Luke 12:48, it says, "For everyone who much is given, much is required." Ladies and gentlemen, we are each called to run our best race, to cross the finish line with the torch in our hearts still burning. I know I will finish this race well, with my torch still burning. How do I know? Because I know who I am. I know whose I am. I'm a remarkable woman, a woman of influence, a woman of faith, and I know it's important to me. You are a person of influence. You are a woman. You are a man who is remarkable. You are a woman, a man of influence. For me, I care, I value people. I lead by example through the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know I get to decide every single day how I write my story, and I want you to do the same. I want you to be intentional. Allow the passion that burns in your heart to guide you, to guide your actions. Discover your passion, discover your purpose, discover your dream. I believe in each one of you. Dale believes in each one of you. There is a hidden vein of gold in each person that's just waiting to shine. And I want to speak that over you today. Shine brightly, shine well, discover the remarkable within you.
And Wendy, I know you're moved by that and the opportunity to speak to people about that. And I think the shining brightly is not in our own strength, but it's
it's in God's
love of God shining through us. That's what will create the legacy, your legacy. And Wendy and I are a woman sharing and a man sharing. We've got stories and we love stories. Every person's story is so valuable and so important. Wendy's hard start is not a diminishing of who she is. It's actually a rich part of who she is. And she wouldn't be who she is without that story. There comes a point when you're in your journey where your own legacy, you come to appreciate it. Wendy will understand things that lots of us won't because of what she's been through. That will give her a richness and a strength that is unique to her. And so I just want to affirm everybody that's listening who might have some tough bits in their background, that they're not necessarily deficits. They are building you to become who God wants to use you in remarkable ways. I heard a story just last week. A man I know who lost his daughter and his granddaughter in a car accident, and the guy, he's heartbroken, as you can imagine. And they've taken on a couple of grandchildren because the father is in hospital still. And the little girl, she's about 7 or 8. She's in counselling in the school. And somebody walked into the counselling arena and said, "I just lost my mum last night." And this little girl who lost her mum only 8 weeks before said to this much older girl, "I know, I lost my mum last week." And she was able to minister to this girl who just lost her daughter. So one of the things that Wendy's saying is that we have amazing power.
We do.
We have the power to impact people every single day. And God wants to use that power in us to create a day of impact and a week of impact and a month of impact and a year and a lifetime of impact.
Amen.
And we want to share with you or encourage you to look inside and to go, what is it that I need from God in this journey of legacy? You're on the journey already, whether you're intentional about it or not. But what is it that God needs me to step into to begin to start that powerful journey or to build on that powerful journey? And my encouragement is walking with God is the greatest thing that you can do.
beautiful, Dale. And I think, the prayer that we pray is, Lord, what does this mean, and what must I do to partner with you for your best in this? Because this is about partnering with God. We cannot do this on its own. I wouldn't be where I am today without that moment of accepting Jesus. But remember, in that moment, life didn't change. I still had to make better choices. I had to work on my attitude. I had to work on my behavior. So it is about walking out daily, our daily choices that will impact the legacy that we leave when we leave this earth and go to heaven. And if you don't know Jesus today, if you haven't had that experience, it doesn't have to be like my experience on my lounge room floor on my knees when I cried out to the Lord. You can simply today ask Jesus to come into your life, and he will move in. I know he moved in on my life, and he will move in on Dale's life, and he will move in on your life. Open your heart. He's just waiting to come in.
Now, Wendy, that could be a point of closing there.
I think so. I feel like we're done, Dale.
I think we could hand back to our hosts to pick it up from there. Thank you very much for sharing, Wendy. It's been wonderful to share with you, and been wonderful to share with our audience today.
What a privilege, Dale.
It is our prayer that God would move powerfully amongst these people this day, because it is our time, as was said, our time to make a difference in our family and in our homes and in our workplaces. And it's small choices, big impact every day.
Absolutely, Dale. And if you know somebody that needs to hear this message, that they need to hear what Dale and I have shared today, buy the recording. It is a pittance of money, I think $10 or something, $30 for the whole session. Share it, gift it to somebody else, gift it. Others need to hear this, that there is purpose in our pain. Thank you, Dale. It's always an honor to be with you, to share with you, to be in conversation with you. Wow, I love how God has used our connection.
I'm a bit speechless. Thank you.
Oh, no, Dale, finish what you wanted to
say. I was going to reply to you, Wendy, but I'm actually without words. I'm done. I'm quite moved. Thank you.
Amazing. God bless you, Dale. God bless you, Wendy. Thank you for the vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your story and not holding anything back. That first few sessions, I've heard Wendy, I've heard you share this before, but every time you share it again, it was like I was hearing for the first time what happened to you that day. And to see the impact that you make now, and the way you are able to reach into the hearts of people and communicate your truth and your message to them with clarity, and with precision. I think it just speaks to the transformative power of choice. That when you get to that point in your life, when you decide that I don't want to live this life the way I'm living it now. I want to change. From that day you walked into that Anglican church, you heard the word, and you did not care about the appearance of the church or the brevity or the length of the message or anything. You heard the call and you stepped out and you were not judged. You were accepted just the way you were. And to that moment where you were under pressure at work and everything was overwhelming, and it was like you're going to sink under the waves of the false accusations of people who are meant to hell bent on dragging you down. And those thoughts of suicide came to your mind again, and you were almost having, going back, almost like a generational course, transgenerational course. And at that point in time, you leaned on Jesus. You looked away from yourself. You looked away from your inadequacy, and right there you received strength. And that there's a lot to unpack from your story, from that moment, that point where you decided to look away from your inadequacy, your emptiness, because you couldn't help yourself. But all you could do at the time was just to stretch your hand, say, God help me. And I know that there are people who will be in similar situations right now. Some of you are watching us right now. Maybe there's somebody here you're watching right now and you're in a hole. You're watching right now, you can't even share your own story. Wendy can come out and share a story because a lot of the actors and people involved are probably not with us anymore. Maybe your own story is so toxic that if you share it, it would destroy your family. Maybe you can't share it now.
Yeah.
You know what? If you can just lean out and stretch out your hand,
Yes.
it will grab you and drag you out of that
Yeah.
situation. It will give you hope. It will give you strength. Yeah. And once you do that, you will notice that remarkable in you. You would see that your life is not just about your life is not just empty. There's something remarkable. Dr. Sam.
Such a powerful message, and thank you very much for being vulnerable with us today. Thank you for sharing your stories. I mean, it's without the story, we may not really understand the message, and it's and for me, I was writing after a while. I just stopped writing and just start, continue to listen. But I feel like the real body of the message is, we must be careful not to carry on the legacy that was handed over to us by man.
Yes.
We must be very careful, because it's very easy to subconsciously and unconsciously just continue to carry on with the legacy handed over to us by our parents, by our background, by our environment, by our society. It's very easy. It's even when you thought you've dealt with some things, like just referring to Wendy's story now, and it's still there. It's still like deep rooted in there. And Dale also touched on that as well. We've got to realize there is that, just reflecting on that message yesterday again, there is that exchange zone where we can
Yes.
literally take God's own baton and drop the old baton, drop the enemy's, legacy, drop, our parents' legacy, drop, our society's legacy, and take on God's own legacy. God, and like Dale said, where we begin to, allow God to heal us, literally, help us rewrite our story, and just leaning on him to do that. That's just so powerful. There's so much to take, and also the power of love, the power of forgiveness, the power of intimacy with God. So much, there's so much in this one message that if and I don't think one can grasp it all, listening live. I think is one that, especially for people who don't understand the concept of legacy fully yet, I think this is a message that is worth watching again and again. Or maybe you have a story, like Dale mentioned, how many of us either have bad legacies handed over to us, good legacies, or maybe not so, or maybe in between. But whatever it is that was handed over to you, there's still a lot of work to do. I remember Dale mentioning that. So especially for people who maybe have been handed such a bad legacy, this is a message you want to watch over and over and over again, because the devil will keep suggesting to you that you can end it all. You can end your pain by yourself and all of those kind of things like that. But when you listen to a message like this, you realize, that yes, pain is pain, but you realize that there is hope in your pain. And there is purpose in your pain. And God the same God that changed the life of Wendy, the same God that changed the life of Dale, can change your life too and bring out the remarkable inside of you. Oh, thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Dale. I know there are questions all over the place, but man, what a message. Thank you. Thank you.
What a message. What a message. So do we have questions? I would, if Mary
First
can
question, somebody was asking how to get the book, Wendy.
okay. All right.
Yeah, look, you can get it on any of the good, the book platforms, but you can also go to my website, and it's all up on my website, Wendy Burns Consulting, so you're able to get it there. If you want the autographed gold version, I'll send it to you somewhere in the world. If you contact me, I'll make sure you get it. I want to speak to something you just said there, Samuel, and I think it's really important. And I forgot to mention that. Is that okay? That,
Yes.
you know, we can be still sitting in a church and still have this baggage and not deal with it. So it's so important that, because I was sitting in a church, sitting under my pastors, nobody knew. My family didn't know that I was contemplating suicide. We must talk to people. We must reach out for help when we get to that stage that we need that extra support. So the baggage is important to be dealt with. You know, the healing has to happen. And we can sit and we can hide it and we can put on a mask and pretend we're okay. That's what I was doing. Don't stay in that place, my friends. Reach out for help. I felt it was important that we did that.
Wow, so profound, so powerful. I'll just bring up one of my mentees. She's actually based in Nigeria, but she's a wonderful lady. You know, we like to show some of these people who work tirelessly. You know, she sends almost all of our emails. She's been working tirelessly for the past few weeks. You know, and so this is a shout out to Mary. Hey, Mary. Hello, Mary.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Wendy. Thank you so much, Dale. Thank you so much. I mean, at some point I was teary and I'm like, whoa, that's touching, really, really touching. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for being vulnerable with us. Thank you.
Yeah, and this whole conference, I know we still have one more session to go, but when Mary is someone who is sort of dedicated to serve, you know, and we've got hundreds of volunteers for this conference, hundreds of volunteers, of which Mary is one of them. So thank you for all our volunteers for all that you do. All right. Do we have any questions, Mary?
Yeah, I saw one question earlier, like when the session was going on, but I think it's off now because it's been asked for a long time. Somebody actually asked how we can get to forget or forgive ourselves of the past.
Okay. Well, there's one that's coming up on the screen now. Maybe we start with that.
Okay. Okay, what do one do? Okay, so this is from Adeyemi Eniola. She's asking, what do one do when you find it too hard to pull out of the past? What do you do when it's too hard?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll jump in, Dale, and then I'm going to hand over to you and see what you would like to add to that. For me, I found myself when I was really stuck, I was continually going back and thinking on the past. See, where our thoughts go, it happens in our mind. We keep our mind back in the past, back in that history or of what has happened, how bad it was, and what has been done to me. We do need to be able to move forward and keep our eyes forward. So God tells us to keep our eyes on Jesus, right? Keep our eyes on Jesus. But that also means keeping our eyes looking to the future. If we keep looking back over our shoulder, we will trip up. We find it really hard to get out of the past. But keeping our eyes forward to what is possible, what is that legacy that God is playing in your hand. But also, I want to just really encourage you to spend some time in that forgiveness mode, because really the key of letting go of the past is forgiving those that have perpetrated you and forgiving yourself for what you have done. None of us have been perfect, but forgiving ourselves was the hardest thing that I had to do for all the roles that I played in what happened to me. So forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and look forward. Don't look back. The more you look back, you trip over. You can't move forward, can you, Mary? You can't walk down a road if you are looking over your shoulder. You will trip over and fall, and we don't want that. We want you to move forward. So for me, that's what I did, spending time with the Lord, working out what he had for me. Dale, what would you suggest?
I in my journey, I think I probably spent years trying to deal with the past in my own strength, you know, and I had counseling, which was helpful. I would have been looking back a fair bit of the time, and so recycling the pain.
Oh, yes, rehearsing.
And trying to break away from it, but you're caught in it. And so understand the question well. I think, I talk a fair bit about healing. I think there's amazing humility required of us when we actually ask God to heal our heart. And if you're not like me, you might have, some of us would be experiencing pride, which would get in the way of that. And in my country, men are taught to be strong and independent and have it all together. And so I see for men, it's really quite a challenge to say, Lord, I need your help. And as Wendy said, you can be a Christian, you can be going to church and loving God and not be entering in a healing journey. And there's a scripture, I think, Ephesians 26:36, and God talks about taking your heart of stone and giving you a heart of flesh.
Yeah.
And I have seen men pray that prayer in strong need, and it transformed. And I really believe that Jesus can heal very, very quickly. We see that right through the Bible. For some of us, I think it's a journey. For others, that afternoon where I said to God, I'll give you 4 hours, that's just, it wasn't a deal, but I'm going to give you that much. Let's see what happens. Well, he used every minute of that in a remarkable healing way. So I think, thank you, someone's put that up, Ezekiel 36:26. We need to grow a new heart, and God is the answer to that. It's a new heart that isn't bound to the past.
That's so good. That's so
Isn't
good.
bound to the hurt. And when we get free of that, creating a future is, it's like you're not towing an anchor around, a big weight from your past. So it's very important. I hope that's helpful. But I can't emphasize enough, just ask God, God, please heal my heart, heal my past, and make that a repeated prayer. Heal my heart today, Lord. Help me take a step today in healing. Just invite God into your heart, and He will honor that invitation. I'm 100% sure of that.
Yeah, and Dale, you're right. And then sometimes it's one thing he heals, and then something else will come to our mind, and then we go back through it. It's a process, isn't it? We've spoken over the last sessions about
It's not
the following
permanent.
process.
I still have new hurts that need healing happening now. I have interactions with people that don't go well. I'm still seeking healing. And
it's a daily choice. It's a daily choice, isn't it? Lay our life on the altar to God and ask Him to come in, and He partners with us. We partner with Him. I love that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have another question. So Sarah is asking, how does one control anger? How does one control anger?
Do you want to go first, Dale?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts there. Anger is a common issue for all of us, and the Bible doesn't say that anger is bad, by the way.
Right.
Anger is an emotion, and God gave us emotions. He gave us all emotions, and what it says is to be slow to anger. But I've seen people that have been angry, and that's motivated them to seek to create change. I think of Martin Luther King. He was angry with the state of the world and wanted to create change. And he did that in a beautiful way. I'm not sure the questions probably posed at that level. So we have anger that might well up in us and come out in unhealthy ways. Once again, I don't think anger is the problem. It's how do we process that? How do we respond in a way that is loving and respectful to self and others? And part of that is starting to think about, what am I reacting to? And what is it in me that keeps reacting here? And once again, I'd say, talk to God about it. God, where's this anger coming from? I can remember my wife saying to me, Dale, where does all this anger come from? And that was a clue to me that I had picked up some anger from my dad. My dad, that was the answer. I was modeling the behavior that he did. And so anger is something very important to consider in ourselves. we can get in a trap where we feel guilty every time we're angry, and I don't think that's helpful, but rather examine what's the source of this anger and how can I grow some ways to respond differently.
Yeah, you're right, Dale. And I think you mentioned the word that anger is an emotion. And I think emotions come at us like waves, right? Imagine the waves on the ocean. They come at us like waves. We get to choose the waves that we will surf. So we get to choose the waves we will surf. Is, you know, where is it righteous anger? Where is the moment it's okay to be angry? And where is it not? So it's, again, it's about the choice. Respond, take a moment, respond and breathe, and don't react. And I love that. Choose the waves of the emotions. Is that the best use of your emotional energy? And start to reflect on that. And I think that's really important. I see that we have a question there, Mary, that says, how do you forgive those that keep hurting you? That's an important question. You know, forgiveness, I believe, is more than a one-off. I've had to forgive my father many, many times over until I had fully forgiven him. Kept going back every time it came back to my mind, I would specifically forgive him. And that if you're in a circle where someone is continually hurting you, I'm wondering if you're in the right situation responding to that question. So is it time to remove yourself from that situation? If it's, you know, and I'm not talking about breaking up marriage here. I'm talking about seeking help to be able to deal with what's going on in that situation. See, what happens is when people hurt us, quite often, we make excuses for their behavior. We make excuses for their behavior. We should never do that. Think about you be responsibility, take responsibility for your own actions. Call out the behavior. Forgive, absolutely forgive those that hurt us, but we also need to challenge inappropriate behavior or remove ourselves from that situation. If it's a situation where you are not safe, then you must remove yourself from that situation. But forgiveness is a daily thing.
Can I add a little bit to that, Wendy?
Absolutely.
It's a really big question, and of course we don't know the context for the person that's asked that. But I see in men regularly, and I'm mostly working with men, that when they get to 30 or 40, they're starting to deal with issues of their past. And quite often they might be disappointed in who their father is. And one of the key things, and I see then recycling the pain of that. And one of the important questions that we might need to ask ourselves in that context is, what am I bringing? What am I hoping for in that relationship? And is that appropriate? So we're quite often asking or hoping, and I know that I fall into this, hoping things in a relationship that actually are a little unfair. I want them to affirm me, or I want them to, and so I have to reassess who this person is, and to know what I can expect and hope from them. So it's letting them off the hook of being perfect, and letting myself off the hook of what I might be hoping for from that person. God is the answer. So if we're looking for affirmation, or we're looking for identity, if we're looking for love, no person can fulfill that fully for us. And so there's a couple of dimensions there that Wendy talked about. And I do think people need to say, oh, this relationship is not healthy for me. And I need to reassess that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting more questions to speak more on forgiveness. It's a key to healing.
Sorry, when we move on from forgiveness and tackle another question, I saw one question here that I really would like you to speak to. All right.
Sure.
So what? Wendy, go. Sorry, Mary. Yeah.
Okay, so we have this. What other resources helped you find healing and transition from the past to not just a life of average, but outstanding success and impact besides reaching out for support? So what were the other things you did aside the support?
Certainly the resources. For me, my resource was my Bible and my journal. That was my starting of my resources, being in the Word, journaling, really seeking to God, becoming in that relation with Him. That was my first resource and my still resource today. And I'm sure it's Dale's as well and everybody else, Samuel and Nee. That's what we look to. God gives us this path, this guide for our life. And that, certainly that's my starting everyday resource, everything I do. Besides that, I also looked at how do I grow myself? What are the areas, if this is the call God has got in my life, where are the areas that I need to grow? So my resources are reading, and positioning myself in a place of influence, being with people that are influential. I think this is really important to mention as we look at this healing and transition. Who's in your circle of influence, right? Who's influencing you? Who's speaking into your life? Who are you giving the power to say who you are? So it's important to have a very good, clear circle of influence, people that will encourage you and empower you and call to the gold within you and call out the things that are not okay. That's part of that transition from the past, from a life of average to outstanding. And we can all be significant. Success is something, but significance is something different. That's when we take that baton really well, that legacy really well, takes us into that life of significance. So that's what we're talking about, is think about where you're positioning yourself. What are you reading? Who is speaking across your life? Who are you empowering? It's a two-way street. When we are empowered, we should empower others. Our life is our very own John Maxwell, my mentor and my coach, says to us, be a river, not a reservoir. Share. It's so important. Give it out, value people. All of those things add to that growth of becoming more than average. And pick up your baton, make sure it's the right baton, the right legacy, be in the right lane.
For me, just to add in there briefly, Mary, if I may, probably the most influential piece in my journey has been the work of John Eldridge and his wife. And I'd been going to church for many years, and the idea of healing hadn't actually occurred to me or been taught to me. But John and his wife do magnificent work globally, written many books and many resources. They have their brand is wildatheart.com, and he's got books like Walking with God, Waking the Dead, and they introduced me to the idea of needing healing. And I think if I can build onto Wendy's idea there, that if your main source of enrichment is going to church on a Sunday, then you actually need to get on your own intentional journey of feeding yourself the scripture and I probably learn a lot from other teachers, and so accessing lots of resources. But probably John, and I've just forgotten his wife's name for the moment, but they do amazing work in shaping the lives of men and women, and so I would recommend any of their work very significantly.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
so
we have to sort of move on now. It's just been an
The
amazing.
questions keep coming in. There you go.
Well, yeah, we will not be able to take any more questions, unfortunately. I think. Or should we just take one more?
Let's take one more, because
I think there's one that there's one that
this
speaks about dysfunctional family relationship.
Okay.
How do you forgive a toxic parent? I think we should just take that and then we end it. So this says that the Bible says to honor your parents, but how do we honor a toxic parent whose actions have resulted in pains, resentment, scars, and a dysfunction family relationship?
Forgiveness is such a big topic and super important. Not simple, and very important. One of the things I could say there, Wendy, if you don't mind me responding,
Go, please, Dale.
that one truth is that my parents had a story. They're both passed away now. But when I start to look at their story, it makes sense of who I met as my parents. They had hardship, they had loss, they had deprivation, they had a whole bunch of things that left them to be who they were. Now, they didn't have God in their life. They didn't have a savior that could have done some work with that. So one thing that was helpful for me over years it took to go to accept who they were and what their upbringing was. They both came from quite impoverished backgrounds, and that was part of accepting who they were. That was one thought I've had off the top, Wendy.
Yeah, and you're right, Dale. It is we're talking about forgiveness again, right? This is about we can't move forward without forgiving, but we can't stay back in that either, that resentment, the scars of dysfunctional family. We are where we are, right? We are where we are. We can't change those circumstances we face, but we can change who we become in them. Just like I had to do. I had to decide, continue that generational inheritance, that legacy, carry that baton, or pick up the baton that I'm meant to have. So I honor my parents. I'm honest about my parents. I don't leave anything on the table. I know they didn't have hope. I know they didn't know Jesus. So part of my forgiveness is knowing that. But I also, I'm honest about their behavior, what they did, the outcomes of that, their decisions and how it affected somebody else. But what you're saying is, how do you heal? You forgive. You must forgive. I don't should on everybody, because should is a terrible word. But if you really want to move past it, it is that forgiveness. Spend time, get your journal out, forgive them, write it out. If they're not alive, you can still write it out. Perhaps it's something you can go to them and you can speak forgiveness, or you spend that time with Jesus and you forgive them. You work it through with the Lord and then forgive yourself. It's so important. That is the journey. But then look forward. You must look forward. You can't keep going back into that history and keep reporting, because you will trip over. There is a choice for you today. From this question, I really believe firmly, you must go forward. Make the forgiveness, honor them, bless them. I always bless them, because we leave them in God's hands. My parents are dead. I could not speak to them, but I could forgive them. I could ask God to bless them. But I then wanted to live. I wanted to live a new legacy. You get to live a new legacy. You don't get to repeat. You don't stay in that dysfunctional. You get to create, even if you can't move out of the circumstances.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I know that I said this was that was the last question, but I mean, the questions just keep coming in. And yeah, this is going to be the final question. I don't know who is going to answer this, but this question is from Caroline Joseph. And she says, if you get to start living your life all over again, what is that one thing you would do differently?
I want to answer that one, Dale. I would do nothing differently. I really want to say, I would not. Hear my heart, everybody. Please hear my heart on this. This is so important. As bad as everything has been in my life, I would not change one thing. I would not change one of the things that happened to me, because you know why? God has used my story to bring about a testimony of his grace and his mercy and his goodness and his faithfulness. So without my story, without the story that he's empowered me to empower women, to give a voice to women, to know, and to give a voice to men, to know that they can be different. Without my story, I would not have that. So what would I do differently? Nothing. I'm learning every day. I learn every day. I'm perfectly imperfect, but I would do nothing differently, because I'm on a journey, just like everyone is here in the call. And it starts the minute I accepted Jesus. I still had to work it all through. You've heard my story. But what would I do differently? Nothing. Dale, what would you do differently?
I think there's a lot of richness in that, Wendy, which shows folks, what this shows you is the healing that has occurred.
That's it.
I think for Wendy, how much of her life might she have wished it was different? And here she is now saying, I wouldn't change a thing. That's healing. That's the outcome of healing. I love the question. I probably stepped away from God when I was about 13. I was going to Sunday school as a young boy, and I stepped away, and I was in the wilderness for, I think, about 17 years or 18, 20 years, something like that. and got pretty lost in that time. And if I was to change one thing, it would have been that decision back there at 13 to stay on God's path and not try my own for so long.
Thank you, Dale.
Wow.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Like, I'm seeing the comment and I see people saying that's a brave answer. Like, that's the sweetest thing, sweetest answer I've heard to that question. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you so much, Dal. Thank you so very much.
What an honor. What an honor that we've had to share today. Thank you for everybody that has been with us in this session. Oh my goodness, Dale, what a great session. Nee, Samuel, Mary, wow. How privileged we are to be able to share our story. But I just want to say, remember everybody, your story matters. You matter. You are as important as we are. You matter.
Thank you. And yes, Wendy, it has been amazing privilege. And God's got a plan that's bigger and exciting for anything than you can imagine. We stood on your footpath, Wendy, didn't know each other. And here we are side by side, being able to encourage people forward. That was God's plan, not ours. And so he's going well before us with exciting plans. And I pray that for all of our listeners, that to know that truth, that he has an amazing thing that he's trying to create in you and through you, and better and brighter than anything you can imagine.
God's word says, and I do want to say this, forgive me, Nee, sorry. God is able to do it immensely more than we could ever ask or imagine. He's able to do immensely more, Ephesians tells us, than we're able to imagine. And believe me, I know that. I'm a living letter, as Dr. Samuel said last night, I'm a living message. I am a living message. I'm a living letter. Dale is a living letter, a living message. Nee is a living message. Dr. Samuel is, Mary is, we all are. We get to live that daily. Bless you, everybody. Love you all.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you too, Wendy. Love you, Dale. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale, we want to thank you for accepting our invitation to come over here. You've been a big blessing to us. Thank you so much. We'll let you go now so you can, have a bit of a rest maybe before you start your day.
Thank you, Dale.
For all that you've done.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you so much.
Absolute privilege.
Guys, say thank you to Mr. Dale MacArthur. People are saying thank you. They're saying love you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
You.
Dale.
So many comments there. Thank you. So many odds, for Dale and Wendy today. It's been an amazing session. And I like the fact that we've got a different take. To do quite a different session from the last one, which was fire. So,
today was so calm. It was so calm and emotional. It was so calm and emotional.
Absolutely. So they will let you go. God bless you. Thank you so much. Guys, Wendy, do you want to hang around or you want to have...
Sure, happy to hang around. I'm good.
All right. What a day. Amazing.
What a day. What a session. What a session.
Yes.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Dale.
Wow. It's just great. Guys, listen, I'm still speaking to you there, that man, that woman. All right. Don't accept that low estate of yours as the very posture or the very best that you can achieve. No. Don't sink in that mire of self-pity, of lack of self-worth, of guilt, of self-condemnation or condescension. Don't sink in that. Don't be buried under the billows and on the waves of guilt and shame.
Yes.
Pain. It's time for you to rise up. If Wendy, at the age of 13, witnessed the suicide or participated in the suicide of her father, and she will carry that guilt and the blame and the shame for years. She started drinking at the age of 15. She was sexually assaulted on the same day she witnessed her father passed away. And if she can't turn around her life and put her story in a book to inspire people, if she can have a platform like this, and she has a bigger platform than this anyway, but if she could come here to share a story, you can. I don't care how deep your hole is. I don't care how big the scars are. I don't care how hurt you are. You can. Today is a day of decision. You must decide that I am
Defining
not
moment.
going to be unremarkable. I am not going to be unremarkable. Listen, I'm a doctor and I write letters a lot. And oftentimes, if I want to talk about my examination, if it's very quick and brief, I will just say neurological examination was unremarkable, meaning that there was nothing to really comment. It was just normal, just normal. But if I find that there's a weak arm, or or there's a loss of sensation, no, I'm gonna write, all right, shoulder abduction was weak.
Remarkable.
Don't let me give you neurological terms now. My letter will be longer. When I find a neurological deficit, my letter will be longer. But when everything is okay, all right, and maybe the person is depressed and they're getting weak arms and legs and stuff like that, I'll just say neurological exam. Your life cannot be unremarkable. Your life cannot be
Yes.
ordinary. You think you're unremarkable because you are not seeing the remarkable in you. And if there's a summary for today, is that there's a remarkable in you. So don't look.
Yeah.
And this is not just all motivational stuff. This is life. This is
This
real
is truth.
stuff. This is truth. So if you are
Yeah.
there and you are seeing your Wendy in you, you're seeing yourself in her shoes, you're looking at that and you're like, this is me. My relationship with my family is broken. This is me. I've been sexually assaulted by the people that I care about. This is me. I'm carrying the guilt and the shame of my parents or of my family. This is me. I have no sense of self-worth. I am down in the dumps. This is me. Then you do what Wendy did. Walk in her shoes and say, you know what? Today is the day. You lock yourself right now, whether it's the morning or the night. Decide where you are right now. All right.
Yes.
Shut off everything and go on your knees and make that decision there and there that I will not.
Gives me goosebumps right now. Yes.
Now, today, once we finish this session, don't go watching anything on YouTube or whatever. Don't stay on YouTube and start watching all the comedies. Just go on your knees and talk to your creator and tell him, yes, now is the time. I'm not going to be average. I'm not going to live an average, middling, mediocre, unremarkable life anymore. This is the time for change. This is the time for me to start building a legacy so that my story will not end here. There's still a journey to go. There's still places to go. You are just at a bus stop. You are not at the final destination. So don't let anyone deceive you that you have gotten there. All right. And now I don't want to start preaching. I know Sunday is almost here, so it's almost turning into a message. That's enough start preaching.
That's the point where I say Pastor Nee.
But you're right, Nee. Now's an opportunity. As you were saying that, I really feel that there is an opportunity. It's all about the power of choice. You get to choose every day and, find a moment, get on your knees, spend time with God, make a choice. Our hearts are, I spoke over this week about the door of courage. It takes courage to make a choice. And the door of courage only has one door handle and it's on the inside, right? It's not a two-handled door. It's on the inside. Nobody can open that for us. We get to open it. And when we open the door and we open that door of courage, whether it's the courage to accept Jesus into our heart, first good choice, best choice I ever made, realized I had the power of great choice from that moment, but maybe it's another choice you need to make. Maybe you've already accepted Jesus. Maybe you've gone off track and you need to come back on track. Go on your knees, open that door of courage, because once we take that first courageous step, then we take bigger courageous steps, another step. But it starts with that one choice. Accept Jesus. That's what turned my life around. You heard my story. I still had to walk it out. Wow, did I have to walk it out? But God would not leave me where I was because I made that first choice. Open the door. Can I encourage you? Can I pray for our audience? I really feel I would like to do that.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, I thank you that we have the privilege of being here in your presence, to be in the presence of these incredible, remarkable people that are listening on audio or are being here visually today. I pray right now that you will move across everybody present, that they will have a sense of your presence over them, that they will have a sense of your purpose over them. I speak to the hearts of those that are listening, Lord God, that you will reach into those hearts today and they will open that door, that they will invite you in a different way, in a newer way, in this new season, in this defining moment, in this exchange zone, to move into the very purpose, the legacy that you have for them. We thank you, Lord God. We pray your blessings over them, over each one of them. Keep them safe, Lord God, at this time, but bring them to know you, to know your true purpose, to know your true potential, and to live it out, to find purpose in their pain, to pick up the baton that you've ordained for them, to pick up the legacy that has their name on them, and that they will carry it well, that they will carry it well in the remarkable you that they are, in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Great. All right. A few announcements before we go. One more session to go, and it's Nick's time. Nick Vujicic. All right. You can't miss the next session.
And
because
Dr. Nee, Nick Vujicic and Dr. Nee. Yes.
It's oh my God! You've got to be in this session. The next session, which is the final session. One more session. In how many hours time? In about 12 hours. Less than 12 hours to go.
Right.
For the next session. Please, all of you who are on the call right now, I know quite a number of people have left this call, but for those who are here listening to me right now, you can't miss Nick. Nick is our
And the over 3,000 listens on Mixlr as well.
Mixlr, yes, well, all of you, please, guys, go. You've got to be there. 12 hours, less than 12 hours. Nick will be starting early. All right. So please, you've got to hear Nick's story. He's going to be sharing his story. He's going to be speaking
powerful.
Wow. So what do you have to do now? What you have to do now, get everyone in there. Get everyone in there. If they've not registered, get them to register. All right. It's very easy. neeborere.com/legacy or Visionary Leaders. Please, team, help me put the display the link on the display. Visionary Leaders, visionaryleaders.com.au or neeborere.com/legacy. Go there, get them, send them that link now. Get them. Yeah, they have to be there to watch Nick. All right, it's going to be powerful. Spread the word. All of you watching us right now, put it on your social media handles. Tell them about this. You can't be under the influence of this grace and keep your mouth shut. I want to go on social media after this and see everybody talking about legacy. If you've been here, put it on your social media handle. Come and speak to Nick. Guys, can we put up Nick's let's look for Nick's flyer and send it to everyone. Let's make sure we send Nick's flyer to everyone so that people can there's no excuse. You've got to be there. You've got to be there.
Share the love. Share this gift.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be amazing. So, guys,
Amen.
And you've got to be there on time, because we're going to be starting on time. We're not going to wait for anyone. All right. Nick will be speaking powerfully, and I will also be speaking after that to round up the conference.
The end of the thing is always better.
Always the last speaker, and that'll be Dr. Nee, and it's going to be an incredible, powerful message and a great call to action. I'm so excited. I know it'll be another sleepless night because your message will be resonating in my mind. I can feel it already. But you know what? What a privilege. What a privilege to be part of this. So looking forward to this evening. Don't miss it, anybody. Please be here. We want you to be here. Share this gift. And you'll get the link later, just before the session. So share it.
Absolutely.
Please check your emails also. Make sure you check your emails. The link is going to be there. Check your emails. Everything you need about the next session is going to be there, right there in your email.
And for those who have ordered, we've been getting so many orders. If you've ordered for any of the sessions, you're going to get the links, the download links in your email as well. I think we've got to bring this meeting to a close now. It's been an amazing time that we've had. Any final words, Wendy?
Look, I think all I just want to say is, make the choice, find your remarkable, start by opening that door of courage. You've got it, guys. Thank you for the privilege of being at the microphone today. I'm incredibly honored.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for being remarkable. Thank you. All right.
We love you, Wendy. I'm just trying to bring up the music.
We love you, Wendy. We love you, Wendy. The session today, I believe, will linger in our hearts. We know very strongly that God has used your story and Dale's to challenge us.
Thank you.
And
Thank
inspire
you,
us as well.
Thank you. What a blessing that we get to do this.
Amazing. All right, guys.
And to everyone watching, you must be at the final session. You must be at the final session. Be the evangelist for that final session. God has got something in store for you that I know very strongly that everyone will be blessed. Whoever you are, from wherever you're watching from, you will surely be blessed. So do yourself a favor and everyone you love and care about, and make sure you bring them there. I've got to, I've got to keep
See
quiet
you,
now.
everyone.
Oh my God. Faithful God and King, here at your feet, I bow to you.